Imagine ChatGPT that never needs the internet, that knows everything about your MOS or your AFSC. So me as a 90 Alpha, an Army logistician, I require much different AI than a fighter pilot. So how do we take that, make it boring, make it simple, and make it usable? And that's what we're doing.
This is All Quiet on the Second Front, podcast where boring conversations around defense tech and national security come to die. Join me, Tyler Xuan, and my second front homies as we dismantle the mundane and cut through the bureaucratic bullshit to demystify the world of defense tech. But be warned, this is not a typical government podcast. Are you ready to get weird? What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Tyler Xuan. Welcome to another episode of All Quiet on the Second Front, the podcast where boring defense talk comes to die. We're bringing all the Tylers together today. Pretty excited. Tyler Saltsman from EdgeRunner AI. Thanks for coming by, brother.
Hey, Tyler, thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, man. So I've had the benefit of learning about you guys and getting to see the awesome stuff you guys are working on. For everybody who maybe hasn't heard of you guys yet, a little bit about you, your background, and then what you're working on, what's keeping you busy at work.
Yeah, so I started my journey as a wrestler. So I was a four-time state champion, and I wrestled my way to a Penn State scholarship, which I'm proud of. From there, I wanted to continue that camaraderie of that just high stakes, brotherhood. So I became an Army officer out of Penn State ROTC. I chose logistics because I like architecture and strategy, and I feel like a lot of wars are won and battles are won through logistics or loss, of course. And so learning logistics has been really cool. And then in parallel, so I was a reservist. In parallel, I started my career in software. So I worked at Oracle and Cisco, most notably AWS. But of course, what happened in 2015, Crimea was taken by Russia, which activated the Ukraine conflict. And I'm proud to have helped aid that effort. So in 2017, I deployed overseas in Eastern Europe. And what I did was I helped architect combat supply chains for the forward line of troops. And I learned a lot. But most notably, what I learned was how behind the warfighter is in technology. And I was a power user of Palantir and Starlink and all that good stuff. But the problem is you can't really use it in the fight in disconnected environments. And it also, there's things that we need to just enable us as individual warfighters from a personalization standpoint. So I get back, I really sink my teeth at AWS. And then what happened was I actually was on the team that helped architect the cluster that launched Stable Diffusion into the wild. And so I met with a mod at Stability, saw out his vision. We architected a 4,000 A100 Ultra cluster, same spine, trained Stable Diffusion with that team, or helped train rather. And then as that became wildly successful, I actually joined Stability as head of supercompute. So the research teams there were absolutely brilliant. Robin Rombach, who actually was one of the authors of Stable Diffusion, got to work with those teams to train the different modalities. Of course, besides Stable Diffusion, there was also stable language models, stable audio, music models, 3D, you name it. And my role was really to make sure each research kingdom was happy with the amount of compute that they needed. It was there where I realized we had a core competency of making these models smaller, largely because we were compute starved on some other teams because the latent diffusion team needed the most. So from there, I was like, wait a second, we can actually have a pretty good language model that's very small, and that was stable LM 1.6b. But then when we realized, wait a second, we can run this locally on a laptop, well, we also realized we could make this domain specific by building different LoRa's, which is a low rank adaptation for a large language model that mimics fine tuning on the edge. And then in parallel, we actually worked with Palantir a bit with the CTO Sham, who had reached out to our team. And so that really just got my mind thinking of, wait a second, we need to go do this for the warfighter, but I couldn't do it at Stability. So from there, I left, grabbed some folks, founded EdgeRunner about a year ago. And then to date, we raised about 17.5 million. I just did our Series A. And the vision is, imagine ChatGPT that never needs the internet, that knows everything about your MOS or your AFSC. So me as a 90 Alpha, an Army logistician, I require much different AI than a fighter pilot or a combat engineer. And so I think the biggest problem with AI today, it's not really usable because it's not personalized and the models are too generalized. Of course, it's very expensive. You need internet connectivity, access to third-party APIs, and it's just a giant mess. So how do we take that, make it boring, make it simple, and make it usable? And that's what we're doing.
Dude, it's one, it's just unbelievably interesting career trajectory. Um, two, as you think about bringing that personalization down, right? Like you talk about just the space between, a 90 alpha and just a 12 alpha, right, in the army, right? Like a combat engineer and a logistician or an 11B or whatever.
Yeah.
I think at a macro level, when the government sort of approaches AI, they're approaching it as this like omnipotently transferable, like one AI to sort of rule them all, and not recognizing that need for customization. How do you guys see maybe the receptiveness or the awareness? Like, are you having to spend a lot of time sort of educating, the broader sort of enterprise? I know at the edge, like the tactical user gets it, right? But the tactical user doesn't buy it. The tactical user doesn't approve it. They don't resource it. They consume it. So everyone else up in there, how are you getting them aligned?
The hardest part, I love this question because the military doesn't know this exists. They don't know that you can have ChatGPT, a better version of ChatGPT that lives air gapped on your laptop that's domain specific to your MOS. And so that's been the biggest challenge is saying, hey, I know you want ChatGPT, but we have something built bespoke for you. Oh, and by the way, it's much less, costly because you have like the unlimited cellular data plan versus paying by the tokens.
Yep.
And then of course you can use this anywhere for anything. And so that's been the biggest challenge is just evangelizing the market, letting them know, letting DIU know, letting these PEOs know. Because if they don't know the technology exists, they don't know to write the requirements for it.
Yeah.
And so now, we're starting to actually lobby on the Hill. We have a lobbying firm. We're meeting with some folks in Congress this week for the National Defense Authorization Act to let them know, like, hey, look, you can run these domain-specific AI agents air-gapped on the edge. Oh, and by the way, something else that we need to start thinking about is the training data. You can't use AIs that have been politically biased. Like, for example, you can't use an AI in the military that's anti-Israel and pro-Hamas or pro-Palestine or pro-Iran or just anti-American. We're seeing that a lot with the latest academics, unfortunately. I think university is a breeding ground for folks that don't have the same warrior ethos that we do, being ex-military. And the problem is AI needs to be culturally aware. It needs to think like an American warfighter. So if you have all these PhD students training AIs that don't think like us, it's not going to be indicative of our culture. Therefore, it's not going to be usable.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Where do you see some of the opportunity, right? To sort of flip that around and, how would a unit best approach this and think about like what's that optimal sort of experience where,
Yeah.
I'm the 18th Airborne Corps, right? And you're out there doing a demo and I'm like, hey, I need this. How do I think about rolling that out? Sort of the training data, thinking
Yeah.
through the broader sort of ontology across my ecosystem.
Yeah. So here's like a good example. Let's say I'm running a convoy in Ukraine. And let's say I need to run explosive ordnance to this EOD unit. So already I need to generate the op order, or I need to retrofit the op order from battalion down to the company level. I need to come up with a risk assessment. I need to come up with a convoy vehicle manifest based on my MTO. I need to probably write some memos. I need to do a lot of stuff that's mundane that officers we need to do for battle readiness.
Yep.
So already right there, there's a lot of time savings. And then let's say, all right, we're on the mission, and let's say things go sideways because they always do. This actually happened. I had a truck go down, and we had to repurpose explosive ordnance onto another truck. Well, can these tracer rounds be repackaged with this explosive ordnance on this truck, or if it gets hit, will it exacerbate the explosion and take out my convoy? Well, in the field around the mission, I asked three different experts. I get yes, no, maybe. And so me as the young officer, I got to make the call.
Yep.
And you know this, like it's better to make the wrong decision immediately than the right decision too late.
Yep.
Well, now I can make a pretty good decision immediately and of course pivot. The good thing about these AIs is these agents, they're the ultimate compression function for knowledge. So we can train on all of this Army logistics doctrine compress it into a language model, and then interact with it via a conversation like we're having right now, natural language processing. So I could be like, hey, AI, can I repackage this explosive ordnance with this? It will know right away. So Charlie might continue mission. So from the getting the mission to streamline the op order, the risk assessment, and then actually going on the mission if things go sideways to help me make a good decision, that would be the entire workflow for a logistician.
Yeah, dude, you think it's essentially having an expert in your pocket, right? For you talk about, it used to be what, the strategic corporal, right? This is making that corporal even more
This is
strategic.
your expert NCO in a bottle. That's right.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
problem is like when your first sergeant or your gunner your gunny leaves, you're like, man, I'm screwed because that's 20 years of wisdom. That's
Yeah.
20 years of tribal knowledge of like years of deployments, but also military doctrine crammed in their heads.
Yep.
So how do we like extrapolate that in aggregate across the fighting force? Something like this could be the way we do it.
Yeah. And you talk about sort of, air gap at the edge. Do you see a future where, they're able to connect and there's a corpus and, echelons above are starting to get insight, and especially just in the logistician realm, right? Thinking
Yeah.
about repositioning and forward deployed and stuff like that.
So I think the future is like once everyone had like AI is ubiquitous on our devices and our ATAC on our laptops and drones. I think the future is the ability to beam the different inferences from the different robots and different devices and things like that. So on my convoy, I can beam this over via secure network, like a mesh network.
Yep.
I don't know if you've heard of this company, but Second Front Systems, they could be an awesome partner for us to build something like this.
Yeah. Heard of them. No, that's the right thing to be building. That's super cool.
So I think
Um,
that could be the future is like
yeah.
we all like the AI is talking to each other through a secure mesh network. I can't build it. I know you all could. So like that's what I love about our partnership is how do we have these think big ideas and then bring them to fruition?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, like you flip it around. I mean, the whole reason we exist is so the best stuff can get to the most important people at the right time. And I mean, that's everything we're talking about is you bringing orders of magnitude more precision and speed and accuracy down to the tactical edge, which, like I said, you and I both know is sorely lacking in all of that and just overblown with chaos. So, where do you see as you look at, and I'm at the point now where I was a lieutenant, 20 years ago. I think it's been 20 years since I graduated. So it's a whole new different army now. How do you see the young officers, those, company grade officers, NCOs, and their sort of digital nativeness, familiarity, ability to sort of leverage and interact? Are you seeing, 20 years ago, this would have been like training fucking, we were all monkeys. You'd be trying to train us to talk. Now you see folks and, you get NCOs and soldiers are slinging apps on the side and building all this great stuff. Are you seeing that help with adoption and use and sort of that feedback you're always chasing with a user? Or are you seeing, hey, you're still having to get folks kind of up to speed on what this stuff is and not to be afraid of it?
No, I think, that's a good point is like I know as millennials we like to clown on Gen Z, but they're now, I mean, they've actually haven't had a life without technology.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they're gonna expect this. They're
Yeah.
gonna expect the warfighters to be advanced, to have, AIs on their devices, and they're gonna know how to use it. And here's another thing too is the problem with AI today is it's the way I see it, and forgive me for saying this, but I almost see like the smart people getting smarter and the dumb people getting dumber. And it's because it's how do you wield AI and how do you manage it? How do you prompt it? The
Yep.
smartest people know how to correctly prompt AIs to get them what they need. Whereas if you're not good at prompting it, you're gonna be like, this thing stinks.
Yep.
Now, I think the Gen Z kids or new soldiers and Marines, they're gonna be great they're gonna be just naturally good at this. Whereas like folks like us and the older generations, we're gonna have to teach
That
them.
battalion commander and that salty first sergeant, be like, what the fuck is this?
Exactly. And you can't
Yeah.
just chew out an AI and be like, go take that hill or go do this.
Yeah.
You know how to, it's almost like the best leaders know how to ask the best questions.
Yeah.
The best warfighters are going to be the best at asking the right questions to prompt AIs. And then I think that's what the younger generation is going to be good at.
Yeah. That's super cool. Do you see a world where, you think about one of the bigger, and I'm sure you saw this in Ukraine, right? Like one of the bigger, like operational it's all three levels of warfare. I think it's really, really felt at like joint operations where, cross sort of cross organizational communication, right? Like I always tell these stories where, we had the Brits, the French, the Italians, right? I had commandos from a couple countries, and like we had like 9 devices because none of us were on the same net. Like data
Yeah.
wasn't transferring, and it all reduced down. And we just were on Afghan cell phones, and we were just running ops on Roshan. Do you see a world where everybody's sort of working on this in like a partner nation capacity, and it can help sort of cross level there?
I do. And like what I find fascinating about this is like sovereign AI, culturally aware AI. So for example, what we build at EdgeRunner, if we convert it to Hebrew, that doesn't mean it's going to be valuable to the IDF
Yeah,
because they have a different culture
yeah,
of being Israeli. It doesn't think Israeli. I think the future is the different NATO countries, they're going to have sovereign AI whereby it captures their culture and their context, and then the AIs will be good at streamlining one version of the truth. And I think that's what we'll solve for, and that'll be like more the phase two, the crawl, walk, run.
yeah.
That's like the phase two, and again, I think we start with these NATO nations,
Yep.
like folks
No,
that.
I do. I agree, and I think everybody's sort of focused on like, how do I build? And I think I'm going to date myself. Maybe it was like 4 years ago. I was talking with one of the folks that leads one of the joint networks, and I was trying to just get a snapshot of like the complexity of how we share data with partners. And there were like 32 different contracts and agreements. And I was like, guys, I get it. Like, where do you have like the single pane of glass on like, hey, here's what moves where and when? And
Yeah,
it doesn't really exist. And I don't know if you can go back and sort of put that genie back in the bottle. I think on a go forward, you've got to say, hey, we've got all of this complexity, one at a technical layer, just because there's so much debt there. Two, we've got all this complexity, different cultural diversity at a like nation state sort of sovereign level. How do we sort of, you know, cut across that and create shared awareness, focus, and allow for the efficient prosecution of mission? And I
yeah.
think that partners and allies are yearning for something that can help, even just sort of like normalize how we're planning across and how we're communicating and all of that.
That's right. Yeah, and it's tough right now with all the red tape, which again, I'm pumped to work with you guys to help us, speed that up with
Yep.
our ATO and all that. I'd say, what I'm really intrigued about. So, like another cool thing about what we can do together. Let's say we deploy this across Army Futures Command with General Rainey, and let's say I can say, hey, General Rainey, of your thousands of soldiers using the AIs, they're asking this similar question an overwhelmingly amount of times.
Yep.
Now you can understand what is my battle readiness at the most intimate level on a personnel basis.
Yep.
Because I might ask my AI something that I'm afraid to ask my chief warrant officer or my NCO.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh
want to
yeah.
feel stupid.
Yeah.
Now we can not only that synthetic data makes the AIs much smarter, but also now you have increased situational awareness. And also to your point about a single pane of glass, how do I understand my battle readiness of every soldier's knowledge gap, at that level? Well, you do it by running EdgeRunner in your devices. We store that synthetic data, and then we partner with second front systems to route all that data back to the mothership and then
Yep.
extrapolate insights from that.
Yeah. I think there is a ton in there on like battle readiness. There is a ton on, the old just like used to do like the commander sensing sessions and like what's just the state of my org
Yeah.
and drilling into whether that's like training effectiveness, whether that's, recall and latency on certain skills or knowledge. I mean,
Yeah.
that is sometimes looked at as like the softer side of the military, but it is. If you want, the warheads on foreheads and you want all the snazzy, like all the non-sexy stuff that leads up to that is what enables that like 10 seconds of focused violence.
And
And
like
it's overlooked all the time.
how many times did we just do a BS training just because we had to do these trainings?
Oh yeah.
Now, like, let's actually do trainings that are valuable, like things that my fighting force needs to know. Like, if
Yeah.
this bespoke weapon system is being, and we're asking this, our AIs, 3 out of every 10 questions how to use this weapon system, let's get some training on it, you
Yeah.
know?
We probably got to figure that out.
Yeah.
Dude, that's super cool. What are you most excited about, right? You look out the next couple years, I think you're seeing, a onslaught of sort of capital and excitement in and around defense tech. You're seeing sort of
Yeah.
AI adoption start to grow. You're seeing sort of governments trying to lean in. I guess I'd ask it both ways. What are you excited about and what sort of maybe gives you reservations?
So I'm really excited about, like, for like, I'm a Marvel Comics nerd. And I think science fiction has an uncanny ability to predict the future. So, for example, I'm really excited about, like, again, kind of what we're building is like the Jarvis to your Iron Man.
Yeah.
Because Jarvis is personalized to Tony. He doesn't require the internet. He knows
Yep.
everything about Tony's Iron Man suit, but also his personal life. Now, I'm really excited about that technology augmenting the warfighter, but also just all of us as humans. And of course, like Iron Man suits would be sweet.
That would rock.
That could be really cool. But what I'm kind of worried about is overly biased AI ran by folks like Sam Altman. I think that's terrifying if the warfighter is using OpenAI to power weapon systems. Because one, I don't trust Sam Altman. And two, we have no idea what these biases are. Three, we know GPT-4 was transcribed into 10 trillion tokens off of YouTube. There's a lot of junk on YouTube. You saw that interview with Mira, the CTO, when she didn't even know the training data, or she's lying. That's terrifying. But also the fact that they are pursuing AGI, that worries me.
Yep.
Because what we're building augments the warfighter. It always keeps the humans in the loop. Pursuing AGI means you want to create an all-powerful sentient being. And I think that's terrifying. If they were to create that, that could just take down our power grid and our entire country's to its knees.
Yep.
Our financial systems are down, our hospitals are down, everything could be completely destroyed. And that gives me reservations.
Yeah. No, I hear that. All right, last two questions. One, and I asked this a bunch for folks that are building because I think all of us are just like learning a bunch of painful lessons every day. You look back on sort of the last year, you guys have accomplished a ton, right? Stood the company up, deployed capability, raised capital. What's that one lesson you learned that you wish you knew, a year, 2 years ago prior to sort of digging in?
I'd say it's good to have very high standards, but for example, it's better to just get out there. For example, as we build the solution, we're pushing to have the highest bar possible, but like, are we waiting too long sometimes? And I'm always like, look, I'd rather deploy 80% good to go than wait an extra month or two just to get up to 90 plus.
Yep.
Like, is that delta worth it? And I think as founders and leaders, we have very high standards and we're very like perfectionists. But at some point, we have to just get out there and execute with violence. And I think I would say we need to fail fast, make a
Yeah.
decision, move quickly, fail fast, whether it's hiring, product, roadmap, research, ideas, you name it, which is why we're in a startup. So I would just say, look, like, we don't know what we don't know, and that's okay.
You're like you're never gonna have perfect information. You're never gonna be completely ready and comfortable. If you're already comfortable with something, you're probably late.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a great reminder, the criticality of velocity.
Yeah. That's
Um, hell yeah. Last question, sort of a structured end here, but take this anywhere, right? You're king for a day, you've got a magic wand, you can wave it, sort of change anything, right? No caveats required, no anything. What's the one thing you change and why?
So definitely every vending machine has a credit card option. I'm just kidding. I would say, uh, for me, copyright law, it's killing me. Copyright
Oh,
law lasts
cool.
7 years.
Yeah.
Why does it last 7 years? That's effectively a lifetime. And
Yeah.
what happens now? The Chinese can circumnavigate copyright law, get ahead of us with AI. We have to worry, us model builders have to worry about, copyright infringement, which lawsuits that'll kill you.
Yep.
So I would remove this insane 7 year copyright law.
Oh, dude, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
7 years is an absolute lifetime.
So
When
yeah,
you're, it's three
crazy.
lifetimes, dude. When you're,
And like we don't want to build AI to copy your stuff.
yeah,
We just need to train on it. It's
yeah,
kind of humans reading your book. They're not going to go and regurgitate your book and plagiarize it. We need to use it to learn and to train. So
yeah,
now if copyright materials in the data set, I feel like we're such a litigious country that folks are just looking for ways to sue. And it just sucks.
that
So
does suck.
magic wand, let's get rid of that.
Dude, I love that. Brother, you fucking fire me up every time I watch what you're doing, what you're building, get to listen to you, man. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being part of the tribe and
Yeah.
for spending a little bit of time today, man. This rocks.
Yeah, and thanks for partnering with us, man. I'm thrilled about, what we're going to do together. So I appreciate the time.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, everyone. See you guys soon. Cheers.
Cheers.